So, Superman Man of Tomorrow releases July 9th, 2027, and whilst we've only got a title, a release date and some comic art, there's still a lot that I think we can break down from this. In this video, I'm going to go through what we can expect based on the little information that we already have. I'm going to split this into the story elements and the themes that we can expect, new characters who could make their debut in this movie, and characters who will and won't return from the first movie. And I do think I've got some hot takes. If you saw my Superman 2 ideas video, I did mention a Man of Tomorrow adaptation as well as a World's Finest adaptation. So I do think I've got a strong sense of what this might end up looking like. We do know though, James Gunn loves to surprise us, so does the title mean some sort of direct adaptation or something else entirely? And who are some of these new characters that could show up? I do think one of them has been teased since the very start of the DCU. And as always, I'm Phil from DC Chronicle. If you're excited for the future of the DCU and Superman, and just a fan of DC in general, then you're in the right place. If you want to follow every DCU reveal as it drops, hit subscribe. We've got a lot more to talk about. And let me know your thoughts on Man of Tomorrow in the comments below. So first of all, the first thing that everyone has noticed, Lex is in his warsuit. So it seems like this time he's going to be a physical threat to Superman rather than just an intellectual threat, which makes me really happy to see. We've never really seen that in live action apart from the Arrowverse, and I'm so happy we're going to see it in the movies. Lex physically going up against Superman rather than just constantly trying to trick him or outsmart him. And I think this adaptation with Nicholas Hoult is the perfect way to do that. You know, we know how much of a hater he is. Going from shouting out the commands to actually 1Aing Superman himself would be amazing to see. Some of the earlier reactions do seem to think that Superman and Lex might end up working together just based on the art that we've seen already. That would be interesting, and perhaps it gives us the idea that there's going to be a bigger threat in this movie, and whether that could be Brainiac or Mongol or even Darkseid. Overall, for me, the thing that sticks out though is the theme, and the theme for this I think is going to be escalation. As this Superman becomes more powerful and grows as a character, not just in the escalation of threats like the big bad that we've mentioned, or Lex evolving into a physical threat rather than just an intellectual one. I do think, side note, I think Lex will be released from Belle Reve. I don't think he'll escape or anything like that. I think he'll use his resources, use his money. I think he'll end up, getting off of the charges from Superman and end up being released rather than any kind of escape or anything. But the theme will be escalation and Clark's values being tested. So one of the key points from the first movie was how virtuous he is, and the punk rock line, kindness is punk rock.
Maybe that's the real punk rock.
And those virtuous traits, I think, will be challenged, especially if Superman has to work with Lex Luthor or get over some of his morals to achieve a greater good. But if Lex and Superman really are working together, then it begs the question, who could possibly force them to team up? And that, for me, that's where new characters come in. Escalation won't just apply to Superman and Lex. It means new heroes, new villains stepping onto this stage for the first time. So let's take a look at some of the new characters that I think could debut here. And there's one character I would bet everything that I have that they're going to appear in this movie. So I would bet all that I have that Martian Manhunter is going to debut in this movie. He's been teased so many times by James Gunn. We saw the Chocos, his beloved Chocos, in the first movie. I think it's unlikely he'll turn up in Supergirl or Lanterns, and he doesn't fit Clayface, so that makes Man of Tomorrow the perfect place to debut John Jones, the Martian Manhunter. For me, I really want to see him be this kind of mentor to Superman and then the Justice League when we get there. Just like how he was portrayed in Justice League Unlimited. That's my favourite portrayal of the character. I really want to see that brought to live action, and there's no better place to introduce him than right here in Man of Tomorrow. I also think we'll see the debut of Parasite in this movie as kind of a secondary villain who has a sympathetic story, a little bit like the Kaiju, but a bit more of a beefed up role. And this can be another test of Superman's values, as I mentioned. If you know Parasite, you know the story from the Man of Tomorrow animated series. Ultimately, it's not Rudy Jones's fault that he ends up being turned into the Parasite, but he still becomes a threat that Superman needs to deal with. So we can see Superman's values tested in that way. He has to take down a villain, even though it's not the villain's fault that they're there. A little bit like how he watched the Justice Gang take down the Kaiju. This time he has to take down Parasite, even though it clashes with his values. And as we've all talked about, it teases that Superman and Lex will team up, and this does suggest there's going to be a big bad. Brainiac, for me, seems to be the obvious choice. It's still crazy to me that we've never had a movie Brainiac. One thing that I keep bringing up on this channel, right, is the untapped potential that James Gunn has in these characters that have been underutilized for so long, and Brainiac is one of the biggest examples of this. So I do think he's well overdue a big screen debut, although I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being someone different like Zod. I know we've had a few Zod adaptations in the past, but he's a huge character in the Superman mythos, and given what we know about Krypton from Superman's parents and the message and all that stuff, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Zod fits into that somehow. And then as well as the big guys like Brainiac, Zod, Martian Manhunter, I'd love to see some of the smaller characters make a debut here. So one of my favourite things about the first movie was we got a fleshed out Daily Planet, characters that felt unique despite not having much screen time, and I'd love to see that continued in this movie. So I'd love to see Bibbo Bibowski come into things, Lana Lang could come into things, and maybe other villains, like smaller villains, make a little bit of a surprise appearance, like Livewire or Toyman would be ideal for some smaller characters to debut. Again, I love how this world is so fully fleshed out, so full and rich with characters. It would really be great to see some of these pop up, and it wouldn't feel out of place at all based on what we've seen already from the DCU. Then when it comes to returning characters, I think it's obvious the Daily Planet crew will all return along with Mara and Pa Kent. We saw how important these people are to Clark. I think the character of Clark Kent will be explored more. That was one of the kind of main bits of feedback around the first movie, was we never really saw Clark, it was all Superman. So I do think they'll explore the Clark Kent side of things more, and these characters are so integral to that, I think they have to return in the sequel. Millie Alcock's Supergirl and Jason Momoa's Lobo, I do think they'll appear in supporting roles in this film after Millie's cameo, and then Jason's appearance as Lobo in Supergirl, we don't really know how big of a role he's going to play in that movie, but I do think there'll be supporting roles here. If we're kind of looking at the Man of Tomorrow animated movie as inspiration for this, they could play an important part of the story, especially Lobo. If they stick to the Parasite story and give us a similar origin as to how that played out, then Lobo could end up being an important part of the movie. Now, the Justice Gang. This might be a bit controversial, I'm not sure, but I want to see a progression in the Justice Gang. I want to see them have moved on a little bit by the time this comes out, so that members may be at different stages, and I want us to be in a position where we can move forward into a Justice League and a more traditional lineup rather than the Justice Gang. Maybe that turns into like a JLI type side team, but we get the main core Justice League, which I think will be the Justice League Unlimited lineup. And I think we can see that coming together a little bit already. So Green Lantern, we know Guy Gardner is going to be in the Lantern show, and as funny as Guy is, as great as he was in the movie and what we've seen of him in Peacemaker Season 2, he might be one of those like small doses characters where you don't want him to get overexposed. So perhaps in the Lantern show he gets like a different objective and he goes off. And then Aaron Pierre, I saw Aaron Pierre comment on the announcement, and that's caused a lot of buzz as well, that Aaron Pierre could be in it, and I do think that's a great idea. If you're going to have a Green Lantern in this movie, have John Stewart instead of Guy Gardner. If we're really going to be serious about building towards a Justice League project with the JLU lineup, get John Stewart in here. Guy Gardner is in Lanterns, so maybe he gets given something else to do, and we have a little bit of a break from him, and he comes back later in this kind of JLI side team that might progress. Now, Mr. Terrific will definitely be returning, like he was one of the most popular characters of the first movie, but I'm of the opinion the next HBO Max show, Peacemaker type show, should be the Terrifics. So what I'm really looking for here is seeing Eddie Cathedral and seeing Mr. Terrific shift into leading a series, leading a Terrific series, rather than just staying like a supporting character or staying a side character here. So we already have Metamorpho as well, so maybe in this movie we can use them a bit more sparingly, but have it tie into the Terrific series. If the next HBO Max series is going to come out after this movie, which I think it would, this movie is moving really, really fast, so I can't see them also getting a new Max series in time for this as well. So maybe they can tease, they can mention Plastic Man or Phantom Girl, see them go off and start the Terrifics, which we then explore in a HBO Max show. So Hawk Girl, Isabella Merced seems to have already self-confirmed on Instagram that she's going to be coming back. Like I said about Aaron Pierre's John Stewart, I think if we're moving towards a Justice League and a JLU-inspired Justice League, then Hawkgirl is obviously going to be a part of that group. So, yep, I'd love to see that build continue here. If John Stewart is going to be in this movie, perhaps we can start the romance between those two. That's something that I would like to see on screen. I do think they would have great chemistry, Aaron Pierre and Isabella Merced, and I'd love it if they stayed true to that adaptation. So yep, let's get them all in this movie and let's get moving towards the Justice League. So yeah, there's a lot already we can glean from this announcement. For me, I'm just so happy that we already have another project to look forward to. The speculation is always, it's so fun for me, and all the reveals that we get along the way. Are you excited for Man of Tomorrow, and what characters would you like to see return or debut? Are you Team Brainiac, Team Zod, or do you have another pick for the big bad that could be in this movie? And what story elements would you like to see? Drop a comment down below and check out one of my other videos right now.